Today's video is going to feature the scrub cap being modeled by our Mass Bandit. It has the printed. Okay, now we're ready to start constructing our scrub cap. First off, what I like to do is when I'm at the ironing board, just take a minute and fold this in half and just give this little top section a press right in the middle so that later on when I need to know the middle, I have it marked. I do this piece that we just marked is going to sew into here, so I like to press the center into that one, and then we can open it up. And what you're going to do is just fold this so that the strap edges are even, and then we're going to just iron along here. We come over here and we get that even, and we can just iron it like that. Okay, then, oh, am I fogging up my mirror, my camera? Then we're going to open this up, open this piece up that we just folded down, and we're going to do a little 1/4 inch seam, or where, you know, just so that the edge is finished when we're done. And that little piece, that 1/4 inch that we turn up, just needs to be between this part of the curve. So we're doing it between here and over to here. Okay, now we need to create the casing line for the bottom, the piece that's going to go around by the neck. We're going to fold this up a small 1/4 inch and then fold it up an additional 1/2 inch. And then we're going to sew close to the edge right up here, because we want to make sure we leave room for the elastic to go through. And then if I'm doing a bunch of these, I would actually just do the next one and the next one and just chain piece them together. Okay, now we're going to insert the elastic into the casing lines we just made. On my elastic, we want to use a 2-inch piece of elastic for each scrub cap. So I've marked my elastic with 2-inch lines, and I do probably about 10, but you could do whatever you want. Anyway, and I also mark in the beginning a little leader about 1/2 inch. And this is knit elastic that I'm using, and it tends to fray, so I will put in a little piece of fabric over it just to help so that it doesn't fray as much. So then we're just going to insert this in here, and because you're doing this long elastic, well, and you're going to do multiple of these at once, or well, I'm doing multiple ones, I just have to worry about pulling this edge through once. So I just bring the edge of the elastic right even with the edge of the headpiece, and I'm just going to put it down here, and then I'm going to give this a back tack, and then I can cut my threads. Now, before I do the next one, because what I want to do is pull this in, and so I've got my 2-inch line there on the edge, but before I sew that, I'm going to insert it into this next one, maybe. Okay. And have that on there. Now, so I pull that so that I can see my 2-inch line that's going to be between these two pieces, and do a back tack. And then slide this up next to there. And then I'm just going to lift over and then do a back tack there. Now, if I was only doing, since I'm only doing two at once. What I'm going to do now is just pull this so I can see my 2-inch line, and back tack. Now, then I can cut my thread, pull this out, and I can pull that, and I just cut right on the 2-inch line. And this will be ready for the next time I need elastic for this for these projects. Open this up, and I cut on the line. And there I've had pretty painless time getting that 2-inch in. Now I will actually, you can actually do these in long strips. So here I have a bunch of them sewn together, and they'd be ready just to open up and cut them apart. And what happened here, this is twisted, but that little line, we can see it, it's right there. Now, and when I get to the end here, I would cut here. And because I've done that little leader piece and the 2-inch line, I could use this when I want to do just one, or if I have one to do. Okay, now we're ready to start sewing our two pieces together. So these, if you marked your center pieces or your center markings, you can just put those together and pin them. If not, you can fold them and find the center now. No biggie. Okay, so now we're going to come down here, and where this corner is, we want like the top of our casing line to be. So the end of this elastic is going to go actually into the seam line of our strap cap. Okay, so we're just going to sew even with the foot, and then you're going to match these edges up, and I use one pin during this whole project, but I try not to pin as much. But if you want to use more pins, that is wonderful. But see how you can just work this in. And if you're coming along and you get to here and this is too big, you can start to use your finger just to push it in a little bit. But this time, it's working out very well. So we're gonna keep those edges even. And when we get up here to the top, I'm going to take out my pin and just keep sewing over the center. And hopefully I stayed a 1/4 inch, because it's kind of tricky looking through this bone screen and so on. Anyway, so here we go. And I'll just sew. So I'm kind of around the curve part, and then when I get to the home stretch, which I'm almost there, not quite, so we'll go a little further. Okay, then I'm going to come, and I want the top of the casing line to be in that corner, and I'm going to pull that over there a little bit, and I'm just going to come here and do a back tack and come up, and I would cut my threads. No, I forgot. Actually, I would come down here, back tack to about that corner, because I don't know if this is my sewing, clothing sewing kicking in here, but I also want to finish this seam off. So I just back tack, and then I can just lift this up, and I've switched my machine over to zigzag, and then I am just going to zigzag around this edge all the way around to the other side. I've zigzagged almost all the way, and when I get here, I'm just going to do a back tack, take my machine off of zigzag, and cut my threads. Now we're going to sew the straps. So we're just going to fold this You want the edges even. And we're just going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam. And do a little back tack. Come up here and do a pivot turn. And then just line these edges up. And sew up here. And you're going to sew to about 1 inch of that. And then we're going to stop and cut our thread. And we would repeat it for the other strap. So now we have both straps turned. And what I like to do actually is I'll sew a bunch of these to this step, and then I'll take them up and I'll sit in my recliner with my feet up, just so I get a little break while I do this next step on like about 12. But to each their own. Anyway, you're going to work this little end into the strap, and then I take a dowel. You could use a chopstick, but you don't want to use a pair of scissors because they're too pointy, I think. Anyway, a 1/4 inch dowel, and then I used it in the pencil sharpener and sharpened it, but then I went out on the cement and I rubbed it down. So now, and I've used it for years, and so now I have this nice, smooth, custom-made turner. Anyway, so I'm going to, once I get that little end pushed up in there, I'm just going to push down and work it up. And then when I get to this point, before I take the dowel out, I'm going to use it to push out the points of the strap. And then you can just pull this and it'll come out. And then you would repeat the same thing for the other strap. Okay, now I have both my straps turned right side out, and I'm going to now sew that little seam that I left. So I'm going to fold in my 1/4 inch, and I'm going to match up that seam allowance, and just that little part that we left undone we're going to do here, and then I'm going to get sew up here to the elastic, and I do just a little back tack. That's a personal choice, so whatever. And then that fold line that we did so nicely before, see how that just folds down nicely? And now you are just going to sew around, and it is a curve, so you have to sew a little bit and then adjust it. Anyway, so you're just going to keep doing that around the strip cap. So here we are, almost to the end. And we're just going to continue to sew this down. And this little end on both of those, I try to fold that in far enough so that little end of the cap is in between the seams. And I'll give it a little back tack right on there just because I'm weird. And straighten this out because we need to, this hole that's here again, and then there we are to the end. Needle up, and we can cut our thread. See, and I missed that. So you know what I would probably do? I would just put my machine on zigzag and just go and just give that a little zigzag. And then see how that'll finish that edge off. And then cut my thread. One last thing. We want to press it so this seam is out to the edge. And then I like to just give it a quick press to push up the seam allowance, just to sharpen it up. And after you go all the way around, you'll have a finished scrub cap.